Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Daanish Naithani and I am a PhD researcher at the University of Antwerp. Welcome to this online session hosted by SpicyIP on higher education. We are having a panel today. It's an online session on higher education. And thank you so much, SpicyIP, for inviting me. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. Thank you for informing me that the recording is in progress. I wanted to welcome all of you and our interesting panelists who are also budding IP scholars. With me today, I have Malobika Sen. Today, I also have Niharika Salar, and I have Lokesh Vyas. We are all going to have a 85 to 90-minute discussion on our experiences in navigating higher education, especially in IP. And we want to discuss about what has been our experience so far, and also discuss what issues that we face in our journey. And we also have some questions. But before we jump into the discussion and about the panelists, one housekeeping rule is that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. And I've also please send your questions using the Slido link, which is there in the chat box. We will not be able to take questions from Sorry, we will not be able to take questions from the audience, but I invite everyone to please put in their questions using Slido, and I will be able to take questions at the end of the discussion and also somewhere between as time allows. So let me first start by introducing all our panelists. First of all, it's Malobika Sen. Malobika is a PhD researcher at the at NUJS Kolkata, and she also did her master's in law from NUJS itself. She's also the assistant director at the Center for Disability Rights and Equal Opportunities. Then we have Niharika Salar. Niharika did her master's from NUS Singapore, and she was also the young Asian IP scholar. Uh, and now she is a PhD candidate at Queens University Belfast, where she's working on issues relating to geographical indications and craft clusters. Then we have Lokesh Vyas. Lokesh did his undergrad from University and then went on to do his master's in LLM, master's from American University, Washington School of Law. And he is also the Arcadia Fellow and Arodhum Scholar 2021. Currently, Lokesh is a PhD candidate at Sciences Po in Paris, and he's working on the genealogy of balanced discourse in the international corporate law. Thank you. And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you about myself. I'm Danish. I did my master's in law from National University Delhi, and now currently I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Antwerp in Belgium, where I'm doing research relating to specialized courts and trust and using the Unified Patent Code as a case study. So let's begin, and thank you so much for hearing us today. I would like to so the structure for the panel is going to be for 10 minutes, we're going to talk about our individual experiences and what we want to share with you. Then I have some interesting questions for our panelists where I would invite all panelists for different questions. And then wherever you feel that you have a question, please put it in the Slido link, and then we have a reserved dedicated quick Q&A at the end of the session. So can I please ask Malobika to kindly share her experience in navigating higher education and IP? And yeah, thank you so much, Malobika. Malobika, you're muted.
Thank you. Am I audible now?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Yes, thanks. Thank you for introducing us. Hi. I started this PhD in IP. Basically, I hadn't really exactly thought about pursuing a doctoral study in IP, but had started already working. So I was working as a law researcher in Calcutta High Court. Therein, a very significant thing had happened. IPAB was abolished, and at that point of time, there was Delhi IPD had developed. So this entire thing was happening. There was a seminar that was being done in the Delhi High Court. So and I started researching on this specific niche area that I'm researching on the IP litigation. More I started working, and suddenly there was this notification that I came across that NUJS was one hiring. My university was hiring for person. Uh, and then at the same time, there were also the PhD notifications. So there was this thing called University Research Fellow. So in order to apply for the University Research Fellow, you have to be a PhD of that university also. So that, and I had not done my UGC net yet. So I had to sit for a written examination. So it was the last day. I just took the form, filled it up, sat for a test that was only 2 days after that. I just prepared for it somehow, gave the test, got selected for the next round. That was a selection round. A few of the most senior teachers came for the selection round. They asked few questions regarding my research area, my methodology, and very strict question actually. Yeah, very, very crucial questions about what areas are going to research, what are your previous areas, what have you done any previous research about that. So since I have done a little bit about IP litigation, told them about that specific area too, and that is how, and I got selected therein, and that is how my entire I journey on IP litigation began. And another impetus that, I mean, I got speeded up, how, because I got selected as a SpicyIP doctoral fellow. That also gave a lot of boost to my research, and helped in a lot of networking too, because I had to reach out to a lot of individuals to interview. It helped a lot of effort in this empirical research too. And that is how I met Danish, Lokesh, and Niharika through my research also. And over to you. I think who is next now? I think Lokesh.
Sorry, Maloba, it's Niharika who's next.
Oh, Niharika. Yes,
No
please.
problem. Niharika, thank you.
10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Niharika. I'm so excited to be here amongst people who I have known for a while now. Some also met recently. I did my undergraduate degree from NUSRL Ranchi. And during Ranchi, I do want to mention this that I did fall in the trap of how people feel that the idea of a successful internship is getting a corporate law internship or a law firm internship. I am taking this time to say this because I want to keep it as real as possible. And I did fall into that trap. I ended up interning only in law firms. And with time, I realized that maybe my interests lied somewhere else, in academic or in policy-oriented work. So that was one reason why I thought maybe I should do a master's. Not because I want to explore more, sure, that is one reason, but also because I want to know a bit more about IP law and also want to gain more exposure. So IP law in NUSRL Ranchi, I think things have changed now, but back in my time, we had to choose our specialization in the fourth and the fifth year. And yes, I did choose IP law initially thinking that because I was told that it would have a lot of lucrative job offers later on, or there would be more job opportunities. So that was definitely, and I don't shy away from saying this, that was definitely one very initial incentive, and I knew nothing about specializations and what to choose. Eventually, I got interested in those subjects, and I thought that maybe doing a master's should be a good option. I was confused whether I should wait to get some work experience before doing a master's, or should I jump into it directly. So I did what I was advised. I was advised that I should start applying for LLMs because I was also very keen on doing an LLM from overseas because of the exposure factor. And I also applied to law firms, and I just decided whatever works out will work out. So I did get some law firm offers, and I got some LLM offers, and I had to decide which one to do first. My instinct was to do an LLM initially because I was advised that try to do your education in one go. At least this was my father's advice. which I think paid off in the end, because eventually when I went for my master's, I wanted to do only academic internships and not apply for law firm internships again, just to see whether I can like this side of the industry or not. So during my master's, I interned with law professors as their research interns, and I did like that part, which is where it started sort of cementing in my head that maybe academia is where I want to be. Why did I go to Singapore? I had other options. I had some good UK university options as well, but during my master's, because a major part of the funding was to be paid by me, or rather by my family, it was a conscious choice to go to a jurisdiction which was closer to home and which was also relatively cheaper. So yes, that was a big role. That was a big determining factor and catalyst in deciding where I wanted to go, and the fact that some really good IB professors were teaching at NUS in that academic year. So essentially, the point was to go to a good university, but also go to a university which has courses and which has professors which are aligned to my research interests and which also fit my budget. So I went to NUS, worked with some professors. I thought maybe academia is where I want to be, and I started applying for jobs. COVID hit, and we graduated in a COVID-induced market, which meant that a lot of offers were revoked. And it was a time period where I thought, okay, now what do I do? But eventually, some long-term connections did work out. Connections in a sense that when I started my master's, I started applying for, or I started writing to institutions, heads, vice chancellors of institutions, that I'm doing my master's now. I would love to work with you. So then an opportunity came up at NALSAR, and I joined NALSAR University of Law as an assistant professor. I worked there for 3 years. And after my master's, in the first year itself, I thought maybe if I want to be in academia, a PhD is the next step. And then the question was, where should I do my PhD from? During my master's, I did realize that global exposure did play a big role in how I thought I had progressed, in not just in terms of intellectual abilities, but just in terms also of confidence, speaking to people, all sorts of soft skills, which are also very essential when you're applying to any sort of job. So I was also keen on doing a PhD from overseas. I started applying, applied straight for 2 years, got rejected from everywhere. And then the third time, I thought this is going to be my last attempt, because I did feel like I was starting to get offers, but I was not getting funding. So then the third year onwards, I applied, I got offers, and that's how I landed up at Queens University Belfast for a full-time PhD. The main things to consider was the supervisory team and um, where would I get funding from, because this was supposed to be a full scholarship, and there was no point. I mean, I always advise or rather suggest people that there is no point in paying for your PhD if you're doing it from overseas. I feel, my personal opinion, that the return on investment is very low. So that's how I landed up at Queen's University. Here I'm researching around IP laws and community textiles, like Daanish very kindly introduced us. Um, my research interests have also taken shape a lot. So at NUS, professors like David Tan and Christopher Springman introduced me to the concepts of copyright law, personality rights, and fashion and textiles in general. And now here at Queen's, my field work and my other readings have again played a big role in how I look at IP rights and how I look at textiles. So my recent field work, and I have 3 more minutes. My recent field work in Bhuj played a big role because I traveled to Gujarat to study textiles and artisans' experiences with IP law. So I'm increasingly now also getting interested not just in IP law, but also methods in IP law. How do we study and what do we study, and how do we make sure that we reach a good finding, not just doctrinal, but other methods as well. So that is something which I'm really getting interested in, and I'm happy to talk more about it when more questions come up. Yes, that's me, and I'm well within my time.
Thank you so much, Niharika. And that's what I liked about your journey and Malobika's journey is like the way you navigated the uncertainty, especially with IP litigation and how COVID hit and the ramifications of that. I would love to know about this in the coming question and answer session that we have, but let's hear from Lokesh. Um, and Lokesh, why don't you take the floor?
Yeah. Can you hear me properly? So that I'm canteen and there's some noise. Can you hear me?
Yes, but there's a little bit of background disturbance.
Is it manageable or too much?
It's manageable.
Uh,
We can hear.
yeah, I don't have a place to go because I'm in college. Yeah, so my journey is very different from Malobika and Niharika. But first of all, thank you, Daanish and SpicyIP for inviting me here. And so I did my undergrad from Myanmar. I was specializing in intellectual property rights. But then there happened to be something called Spicy IPSA competition, which changed my life. And then I participated in the competition, and then I got to meet amazing people. Swaraj is one of them who is here. And then the entire journey began. And I was thinking of going about academia, policy, research. I was sure about not going into the onto a law firm job. And then at that time, maybe at that time, American University where I did my masters also came up, and they had a specific funding to Arcadia Fellowship. It was a specific funding of that year, which funded project on right to research and international copyright law, which fit my own research agenda. So I went there. I got most of the scholarship. It was 60-70% I got the scholarship. And then I also had my salary, some part. So I covered my education program. Um, but then what I was working on the history of international copyright law there. And then I got to meet some people through my supervisor during LLM. And then I applied for some universities in Europe directly. And I got to some of them and it sounds fully full scholarship that time. And the supervisor I'm working with currently was the one who came initially at American University. So this is how I got to work on my my IP. But I think I was interested in intellectual property rights from my second year, but not exactly as copyright and trademark, but mostly the knowledge governance, how we think about things, the way we think. It was the initial point which I was looking at, and copyright law. When I read about the same, it helped me to see that there are different discursive patterns which are in place, which make you think in things in a specific manner. And then I started writing, and then I joined. And then I'm now doing a PhD in history of balance rhetoric and international copyright law. I use the framework of knowledge and power to understand international copyright law. Yeah, this is pretty much my IP journey so far.
Thank you for being so succinct, Lokesh. Now I think I can share a little bit about my journey. Um, Hi everyone, I'm Danish again. I'm introducing myself. So I did my bachelor's in law. It's called LLP, BLS LLB from Government Law College in Bombay. But I mean, I'm from Delhi, but I shifted to Bombay completely. Throughout law school, I was acquainted to IP when I was in my second year. When I entered my second year of law school, I was fascinated by IP, and actually meeting Professor Yogesh Pai at NU Delhi really kind of helped ignite that fascination. And but I mean, I was also interested at the same time in appearing for the civil services examination. So IP journey was also going on, but I was also interested in civil services examination. And because of which, after my law school, I sat for the attempts at least couple of times. And then, when COVID hit, and I was also I also wanted to see other avenues. I applied for my master's at National University Delhi, where I just gave the IELTS examination at that point in time in 2021 at the peak of COVID. And then, so I got through in New Delhi, which was also a very difficult examination. But, with the competitive exams, when you start giving competitive exams, you feel like, okay, we can, it becomes a sort of a habit. After NU Delhi, I was entering NU Delhi was a very great experience because one, I was introduced to a very new way of learning. Because government law college is a completely, we it's a completely different setup in the sense the way we learn and how we do things at GLC. But entering in New Delhi was completely different. There I understood what really is IP all about. I was really introduced to new methods, new ideas from professors. And after masters, I was again because I had not had a after masters it was difficult to navigate what kind of work that I wanted to look into. I was quite confused. I was still not certain about whether I wanted to continue with my civil service preparation or get into academia full time. I got this wonderful opportunity to be an intern at the UK Intellectual Property Office at the British High Commission, where I got a sense of how an IP office really works and what are the mechanisms in which they really function, which actually led me to working with as a law clerk, as a law researcher, like Malobika did at the Calcutta High Court. And then I worked as a law researcher at the IP division for some time, and then I applied for my PhD position. But for me, it was I had a very clear sense of the way that I did not want to directly go to my PhD or go for higher studies without having a work experience. For me, having work experience was important because I wanted to see how things operate and what really is litigation all about, even though I did not really have a lot of litigation internships. But working as a law researcher at the Delhi High Court, I was introduced to many different arenas of litigation, be it IP litigation, be it writ jurisdiction, be it civil suits, commercial suits, because of which today the work that I'm doing relating to specialized courts and courts has become so much more uh, how experiential. It has become so much more natural for me because now I'm able to understand and see how courts work. Courts are not only working as arbiters or as actors in a democracy, but they themselves are organizations. They have their own structures in place, they have their own protocols in place. And working as a law researcher helped me really think about courts as those organizations. And that's why a lot of the work that I do now is on judicial governance and trying to understand courts as living organizations. So it was definitely not a straight path for me. I made a lot of mistakes in the way that um, you know um, it did not happen intuitively. But somewhere of the line, I had some guidance, and definitely what Niharika also said about, contacting people. And I was very lucky to have a lot of the guidance along the way from a lot of people. But the thing for me, I think, has been that, okay, one path may not work, the other path will work. If the second path doesn't work, the third path may work. And so, yeah, and today I'm also a PhD researcher. I'm on a fully funded scholarship at the University of Antwerp, where I work with wonderful colleagues on issues relating to trust and specialized courts, and more about that later. But coming back to the discussion at hand, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing their thoughts and on their journeys. I also would just like to see how many students or how many participants are interested in um, can we see the number of people who are interested in masters and PhD? I just wanted to gauge that. Uh, Participants who are interested in the masters or who are applying for masters, can they please raise their hands using the chat option or the React option? That means that we can then have an overview of what our viewers are interested in. Okay, I think most of it is relating to the masters, because then I will ask my panelists to, have a more centered discussion relating to applying for masters, navigating scholarships, navigating universities, and so on. Even though, for example, like Niharika already shared about NUS Singapore, and Lokesh also shared. Okay, we also have some scholars for PhD. So I would suggest the panelists to have an equal kind of a discussion both on masters and PhD. So the first question that I have is for Malobika. Malobika, you shared about IP litigation, and can I ask you about how did that experience really help you, or is helping you, to deal with your research now and your research questions briefly? How did the experience as a in IP litigation really help you in your PhD and deciding the topic?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Danish. So basically, I wasn't arguing as a attorney before the court. I was basically a legal researcher, and yes, that helped me quite a lot. But in the initial years, to narrow down my research area, a lot of effort, a lot of discussions with teachers, with my supervisors, obviously, specifically, was required. Specifically in our university, we have this concept called 6 monthly progress report submission. Initially, I think for the first year, we did not have it. We had the coursework and we had it annually, and then we started having this 6 monthly, which in a way helped us quite a lot because this, at least it helped me because it helped me to streamline a lot of efforts that we were doing. So, IP litigation, coming back to the question that how IP litigation helped me, it kind of gave me a platform to stand uh, on this research on this research forums to answer which background I was coming from. For example, I will tell you how my methodology works. I mean, I reached out to a lot of individuals on LinkedIn. You have seen how even if you have gone through the articles that I write, I mostly, most on the literature, I go through the court practices. So since I come from court, uh, this has helped me quite a lot because I know I have sat there, I have seen how the courts function. When I interacted with Danish in Antwerp, he was a legal researcher in Delhi High Court. He has told me quite a lot of specific judicial processes that happens in Delhi High Court, which I've incorporated in my research. So this has helped. In your research, it will help where you come from, where have you started. It will help how many people you reach out to. It will also help, but it doesn't mean that you will reach out to everyone, because there will be people who will when I am not, you need to filter it down. You need to know what to use, where to use, because there are too much information out there, but you need to find the research gap. You need to learn from individuals. IP litigation now, IP litigation is a huge area. There are many practitioners working. For my research area, not everybody will be my stakeholders. Specifically, if I'm bringing an example from my research, specifically somebody who is working with my area could give input, or but that is what I thought. But when I started reaching out to stakeholders, even somebody who had started off the litigation 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, who themselves thought that they were junior, may not have much to add. When I started having a conversation with them, see, this my supervisor helped me a lot. My supervisor said, if you're conducting an interview, do one thing, keep everything open-ended. It's up to you. So I kept that. And so once I started talking and talking, kept on talking. The information that kept coming in, for example, there was a stakeholder, a junior advocate, who was present in the court when the ChatGPT versus ANI case was going on. He's a junior advocate. He was present there, but I wasn't present there. I wasn't seeing this event that was happening. But the fact that he saw and he gave me that information, it helped me quite a lot. So this is how it has helped me. IP litigation, for me, it has helped me to reach out to stakeholders. The views of the stakeholders, it has helped me. But it's very nuanced too. For example, I think for specific research, for Danish, his research will matter, who his stakeholder is. For you, it really matters how you build up your area. It matters how you define your stakeholders. It's very, very important to listen to the questions that come up during colloquiums. It comes up during conferences, comes up during any kind of workshops, wherever you're presenting your data. If somebody criticizing your work, your research area, I write sometimes with SpicyIP. There are comments that come up. People ask questions. There are always, sometimes there are criticisms, but listen to them. There will be areas where you can improve upon. They will always give you an input. There are people who are there to correct you, but that also, see, ultimately, there at the end, you have to defend the
Malobika,
thing.
on that point, can
Yes.
I also ask, sorry to interrupt you, I was
No, no,
thinking
no.
of
It's,
also asking
yes.
Lokesh and Niharika, because there's always this conversation about one full-time versus part-time PhD, and then having work experience and not having work experience. So what has been, I mean, Niharika also worked, I think, after the masters, and but Lokesh did a masters after, right after grad school. So I wanted to know what has been their experience in this. Niharika and then Lokesh, like 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Part-time PhD versus full-time PhD was a big battle in my head, I'll be very honest. Because I think once you get a job which you like, you are lured into sticking to the job. But then how do you do a PhD simultaneously? And the next obvious choice is to do a part-time PhD. And there are pros and cons of both. For me, a full-time PhD mattered more because I wanted the entire university experience. I wanted to feel what it feels like to be an independent researcher on your own with nothing to do but to wake up every day and think about the same research question for how many number of years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. That is a very different experience from doing a part-time PhD where you're also doing a full-time job simultaneously. And for me, a part-time PhD, I did not want to do a part-time PhD initially because of these very reasons. I wanted the entire university experience because it was determined by a motivation that I also want to do a PhD overseas as well. So for that to happen, a full-time PhD was the but obvious answer. Having said that, because I failed so many, because my applications were unsuccessful so many times, I did started considering that maybe a part-time PhD with my current job would be a better option. In my experience and what I have heard from others, a part-time PhD, the cons is that it's easy to lose motivation over a period of time because you're also doing a full-time job. Another con is that you will be carried away by other things happening simultaneously in your life. And with something to research, you do tend to lose motivation if it extends beyond a period of time. So to keep that passion alive, I have heard from people, my friends, that it's difficult to do in a part-time PhD, but the pro is that you get to continue doing your job and it helps in academic institutions because you are able to show that you have done your so-and-so number of years of assistant professorship or whatever for your next promotion. So that's definitely a pro. For a full-time PhD, the con definitely is isolation, which I think we need to talk about more. It is true, it gets very isolating. But it's a choice, you have signed up for it. And that is what brings the entire full researcher's experience. So that's my 2 bits on part-time versus full-time. Happy to talk more if questions come.
Thank you, Niharika and Lokesh.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. In my case, I never really thought of part-time PhD or part-time LLM as such. I was sure of going for the full-time. For me, the only concern was funding part. But as long as I get the funding, I will just go for that. Unless I will just go for the full-time. So I never thought of part-time. On the work experience part, I would say that's very important to have it for your master's application. In my case, what happened is that I was working as a researcher with my IP center, and I went there as a fellow. So it was a different case for me. So I was already working. So when I applied for the PhD, I had a work experience as well, not just my internship, but also my LLM, which is not the case for a lot of people. But I would say that if you don't see like these kind of fellowships that exactly fit your agenda, it's always useful to work for some time and then go for your master, the PhD. And so for second thing, why it is also helpful for people who are applying for masters is that a lot of people use their their work experience to show that okay, I've worked on these things and now I'm coming to my for my masters to do the next step. So a lot of people also use kind of piggyback their civics experience to kind of scale themselves for the LLM and for the PhD. For LLM for people who just done like people who have just done their LLB like me, we can mostly talk I could most talk about my SpicyIP work, which did help me a lot in getting in getting my LLM because I worked on some posts which were exactly on the topic which Arcadia Fellowship was about. So it did help me, but I would say that this was a specific case. So if you can, then of course go for the like work for some time and then go for the master because some universities only allow you when you have some experience. For example, Stanford and Harvard in some places. They, they normally prefer people with work experience.
But I want to also jump in and quickly ask that there was also this question that was asked in the Slido that uh, if someone is interested in part-time PhD, does not having a master's degree hurt my chances? And I was thinking the answer is probably yes, because if you do not have a master's degree, then how would you be able to apply for PhD? So if anybody has any other answer, I'm also posting this in the chat box. They can answer. But I was also thinking, yes, Niharika. Yeah.
Just a quick thought. It really depends from university to university. I'm aware of a lot of universities here in the UK where there are pathways to do a PhD without a master's. They depends on funding schemes too. There are funding schemes where the first year of the PhD is meant to train you in research and in research methods, ideally which you should have done in masters. So that's a great option for somebody who does not have a master's and who can directly jump into a PhD. I also feel it's very discipline specific. I think this is a more popular choice in STEM and in management studies, etc., where people do a PhD without a master's, and therefore they end up doing a longer funding scheme because they tend to cover the master's as well. So it's possible. Really depends from university. It's not impossible. Checking the website of the university, what options they have, is your best course of action.
Thank you,
Maybe
Niharika and
on
Lokesh.
just a quick thought. Maybe people who want to work on not exactly in law, but connected areas like sociology or anthropology. Some people have done law from India. They can also go for the PhD directly in the US because LLB is counted as JD at some university. So I know some people who are directly going for the PhD after their LLB, but not in law, but from different streams.
Wow, that's a very important clarification. And I also had a follow-up question from what you all shared. How has COVID really affected this viewpoint on work experience after masters? Do you feel that in your experience, and people that you know, work experience has become more important in the climate that we are today? And has that changed over time?
I can go first if
Yes, Niharika. Yeah.
in my opinion, I don't think COVID has had any impact on the requirement of work experience. Um, how much of work experience is enough is a different question altogether. When I had, I think, completed 2 years at my previous employment, and I was looking to apply for, I was continuing to apply for a PhD. I think I was devastated to an extent that my applications were unsuccessful so many times. I asked a few people that would it make a difference if I apply after maybe 3-4 years, after gaining maybe 3-4 years of work experience, and the answer was no. 2 years of work experience, 4 years of work experience doesn't make a big difference. In fact, most of them responded, and when I say most of them, I mean professors in UK, Europe, and Australia. I never applied to the US. I just want to clarify, I'm talking about my experience in these jurisdictions. Most of them said that your 1 to 5 years of work experience isn't really a big deal. The main component is your research proposal. I think where work experience makes a big difference is where you're applying for scholarships which specifically ask for a certain number of work experience, or it's a number which is hard to miss, like 10 years, 15 years of work experience. There, I have been told it makes a big difference. But within the stage of maybe 1 to 3 or 4 years of experience, it does not have that much of a push which we are made to believe. It all comes down to, I think, the research proposal. That's
Maybe I have few thoughts to share on this. COVID did impact individuals who went for the masters at time. I went to US in 2021 August. By that time things were mostly manageable. They were okay, things were open, so I could do it. And I was not looking for a job as such. It didn't impact me, but I know some people who got impacted because of the COVID thing, because market was down at that time. And some universities also were not sure of giving offers or maybe like inviting people in person to the campus. So initial some like one like couple of months initially, there was a lot of uncertainty about whether we should really give offer or not, and it also impacts the job market in the US particularly. And for the point about the work experience and the PhD, I'm not sure. Like particularly looking at French legal system, the legal education system, which I'm currently part of. I know people who have simply, and most of people that I know, they've not worked. They've simply done their masters. And they've joined PhD. It might be different here. And of course, if you have worked for some time, it always helps you. Even if you work for some time, it helps you. But also, and I also don't see in France particularly that work
Yeah.
helps so much. It's mostly your proposal. That's the first thing, and then your connection in the sense of that you're really able to justify your proposal or not. Because some universities also have interview. Even if you clear the first round, there's an interview, and they justify that position.
Hmm. Thank you, Lokesh. And I also get got questions about, I also feel that there's a question that um, how do you really,
Danish,
yeah,
I just
Malobika.
wanted to interrupt one thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, the
Sorry.
COVID bit in India did impact the PhD scene a little bit because at that point of time, UGC net got postponed quite a lot. And at that point, jobs became very, very difficult. So there was a set period when people were not getting a job, and research-based jobs were almost absent completely. But and moving around for the jobs were also very difficult from one city to the another, then getting settled, then getting a job. And in specific universities, also PhD notifications were not coming up. And because they were also very, in India at least, I do not, I mean, it's not something in India, PhD notification are somehow related with the UGC net notification, because if you give UGC net, you do not have to sit for the entrance examination. So since that was not happening, the notification was quite delayed as such. So specifically in our time, the notification came, I think September 30th. By the time everything finished, we got admitted in January 2022, but we were called the 2021 batch. And COVID also affected another small thing. I do not know it affected you guys or not, but since we were just the post-COVID batch, it started affecting a lot of research questions. A lot of research questions were based on COVID. But here in our university, our professors had specifically asked us to think about the research area quite carefully, because COVID is not going to be there always. So if you're thinking about something that happens in the future, perhaps if it is an implication, but just because it is in fashion, don't just take up research topics only pertaining to COVID there itself. So that is how COVID affected the time when I started my PhD.
Yeah, and I agree because when I finished my master's and I wanted to sit for the UGC net, I was appearing for the 2020 cycle in 2021 end. So it was 2022. So it was like there was a lag, which was quite funny. But I mean, thank you everyone for for those perspectives. And I also wanted to know, and there's a question also which many students ask, that how do you really start with this process of applying to universities, and how did you, Niharika, you shared about NUS, and Lokesh, you also shared, but how do you make those kind of choices about scholarships? Specifically, in the sense that does the scholarship matter first before finding the college, or does the college come first to secure an admission and then look for scholarships? So, what do you feel? And definitely, I do not know anything about this process because I didn't have a master's in abroad. But I would love to hear from Malobika also that if you have any experience on how you applied for masters in India at NUJS, and how did you prepare for the exam? So if anyone would like to start, Lokesh, do you want to start by how really did you make the decision?
Sure,
A
sure.
little bit. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'll answer the question first, that how do you choose the university? Is it based on the funding or the university name? I would say that it depends upon who the individual is. For a lot of people, the funding is the most important part, and I was one of them. So I've mostly focused on the funding part. Now there's three kinds of fundings which one can think of. One is general funding, or the funding, or the famous funding, which you can normally find like notifications for example, Commonwealth, and these kind of fundings, which you should definitely apply for if you go for the master. And then there are funding which are more specific, like the one that I got, Arcadia Fellowship. So if you want to apply for some universities, you can always look at whether there's some special new funding which has recently come up, which you can apply. And if you're unsure of, always send an email and tell them that you are looking for this college and you want some scholarship. They can always tell you. Third kind of scholarship is not normally mentioned on the website, but you can always send an email to them and tell them that there are, because I know of American University, they have some anonymous funding, which is difficult to find on internet. Like they are there, but difficult to find, not very easy. You can also look at that. Sometimes you find two, three fundings, and then you go there. So in my case, I had Arcadia funding, I had Arodhum funding, and so this is how it was like possible for me. But normally, I would say that look at different types of funding. And third factor, which is also important, that decide country you want to go. US, Europe, Asia, other country, and look at their immigration situation. Country doesn't have good immigration policy, I would be very hesitant about it. And I will not name any country as such, but you can just think of countries around you and you can see okay where you want to go and where you don't want to go. But also look at the ranking of the universities. So there are two ways. Either you go for the top university, which is Harvard, Yale, and you go for Cambridge and Oxford, where your chances of getting scholarship might be less. So a lot of people would be applying. Or you go for top 100 universities, look at their countries, and see where you can get scholarship, or where you can high chances of you getting scholarship. So I would always go, like I would try to go for University of Vienna, which where there might be not any fees. So even for 10 lakh rupees, 15 lakh rupees, I can manage. So make a strategic decision of where you want to go, what you want to do, whether you're funding is a huge part. And the funding involved for a master's is just too much, more than like we can simply say yes or no. So for middle class individual to go for the master's on the self funding or even getting a loan, is a great part. Yeah.
Niharika, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. It's all dictated by the question that what do you want to do what do you want to do after your LLM and what do you want to derive from your LLM. If the goal is to try to work and maybe settle in a jurisdiction which is not your home country, then immigration policies are definitely a big consideration, like Lokesh said, in terms of choosing your university and the country which you want to apply to. But if the goal is to learn, or if you have that privilege, if you're in that privileged position where you want to take that choice that I want to do an LLM because I want to learn enough, or I want to learn from on a certain topic, then university ecosystems, the presence of certain research centers at that university, the presence of a good lineup of professors who align with your research interests, these things then become a big consideration. They also become a big consideration if you want to home country and then maybe want to go into industry. So what after your LLM is also a big question. If you want to be in academia, then maybe credentialism does matter. There is no shying away from that. Getting an LLM from a top QS ranked university does put you in a good place if you want to apply for, say, academic jobs. But if you want to go into industry, then probably it doesn't matter because all industry cares is about your work experience. I mean, these days, I think a prevalent practice in law firms is that people work for a bit, gain experience, get their hands-on experience on drafting, litigation, etc., and then go for an LLM, and then come back to the same law firm because that law firm has offered them a bond period. So, and they also fund them for that. There are a lot of these opportunities these days where, because even law firms get a lot of value from advertising their associates who have experience in other jurisdictions. It helps them in building their clientele and international clientele too. So it all comes down to what you want from your LLM. My goal was to gain more exposure, learn more from a certain subject, and possibly get into academia. I was leaning towards academia. So like I mentioned earlier too, I had some other really good offers from European and UK institutions, but because funding was a big criteria, I had to choose a university. And again, on a more informal note, my parents also told me very clearly that we won't pay a part of your fee only if you want to go to some random university. It has to be a good top QS ranked university. Only then it will make a big difference. Otherwise, what's the point? So different considerations, what are your goals, and your catalysts and your considerations will also change. So that was my reason why I landed up at NUS. And again, sorry, just one last point. A lot of people these days also say that they want to go to a certain university, but I keep telling them that you have to look at the lineup of subjects which are on offer, because a lot of subjects which I studied at NUS are no more offered there. Would I still go there? Probably no. So I think that's also a big consideration, irrespective of what you want to get. Definitely looking up at the line of courses and visiting professors which are coming in that academic year to that university.
Thank you, Niharika. That's been very helpful. Malobika, can I ask you to tell us about the Indian perspective and applying for, preparing for IELTS a little bit,
Yeah.
or
I
flat?
think for preparing for LLM, I think one thing, since I think Danish, you and I both did it from India. You got through NLUD, I got through NUJS. It is through CLAT, and it was CLAT. I don't think so. See, for CLAT, I think I started preparing late. I did some work. I was engaged in a few hither and thither. I worked in the court as a junior advocate for a while, but not also very continuously. I was preparing for UPSC too. But then again, when I started off LLM at that point of time at my university, that is NUJS, NUJS did not have IP as a separate stream. It started right after we graduated. So we had corporate commercial as a stream. We had IP as a separate subject, as an elective that was provided. It was a separate subject that was given. You can choose in your master's. So we had that. We had a teacher teaching us that, and it was not very popular. But we have a separate stream completely. There are different subjects, compulsory and electives that are taught separately as a part of the subjects. But it really, at that point of time, did not make a difference because I was too much into that field. It interested me a lot. Yes, it helped. I had a scientific background. I had taken up science in my schooling. If 11th, 12th, I had science. That helped a little bit. And with regarding to IP, I can see a data privacy and tech question. I can't really answer to data privacy and tech, but I can specifically say, since I come from a business and law background, that did not hinder me from having a special interest in IP. IP, because it was separately offered as a subject, the teacher taught us pretty well in that subject, and separately because since it was my LLM dissertation, I took a separate interest in it. I did quite a big research into it, and so it really matters what your areas will be if you take up your masters, even in Indian university too. If you're picking up streams, be careful at which streams you're picking up, what universities, which type of streams they are offering. If they're specifically offering IP streams, pick that, because there will be specific faculties set apart and specific subjects which will be taught for specific IP subjects there in itself. Because now more and more universities that are coming up, I have done my undergraduate from RML. Last thing I hear, I think they are also providing a separate stream. I'm not sure, but in their masters. But NUJS started, I think, from 2022 batch started offering IP as a separate stream. Before that, IP as a separate stream was very sparse in India, but they started offering. So if you're taking up in LLM, if anybody is trying to do LLM from India, if you're trying to do IP in any Indian university, specifically national law universities, try to get a good rank. That really, really, really matters. And if you're speaking of specific universities, do a little background check. NUJS gives a good IP subjects. They have very, very good faculties, NLS, NALSAR. So the good faculties, and I think Niharika can speak for NALSAR, the IP faculty is there. And so we have a strong foothold there. If you're pursuing your LLM from India, I think national law universities are good, but it really depends. It comes down to you. How deep is your interest? What area are you researching? Because after all, it's research. It's your research, how much you research, how well you research, how ethical is your research. It really matters, comes down to you. And the journey starts from LLM. Even if you're going to PhD, even if you don't do your PhD, it starts from LLM. And a small bit about part-time PhD. As a part of my cohort, I am doing my PhD along with my employment at a university. I have individuals who are doing PhD along with being an assistant professor elsewhere. There are multiple assistant professors who are doing their PhD. I am a teaching assistant. So your attendance is necessary once or twice a month. I'm talking about Indian universities. You have to come. In our university, you have to come once or twice a month, twice a year to come for specific conferences, for specific. So we have this progress report presentations that you have to give. Otherwise, I think you have to maintain a communication with your supervisors. That is required. Otherwise, it's very smooth selling. If the specific, I think it comes down to the university. If the university does not forbid it, I think both job and PhD could be maintained. But it really helps if your job is within the university. That is just like me. You have close access to every thing. With regard to research, also you get, so even if I'm teaching 2 or 3 classes, I get some time to research, although it gets really, really, really hectic. But some time is given, some breaks are given. You can dedicate that to your PhD research therein. Yes, over to you,
Thank,
Danish.
thank you, Malobika. And I just wanted to add two things to this discussion, that one of the most important reasons why I chose to do it in India is because one, it was I was applying during the COVID time, and I found it much more reasonable to stay within India. Secondly, my family did not have the resources to fund the masters abroad. And for me, New Delhi seemed like the natural option because it was literally, I lived in New Delhi. Best of professors were there. Professor Rugesh Bhai, Professor Arul was there at that time. So it was the natural thing for me to go there. And now New Delhi also has the Viper LM program, and there are definitely very strong options within India as well, that you can. I think other programs also in other universities also very good, but it depends upon us. It depends on the professor. It also depends upon the networking and what you want in the future. On the scholarships, I wanted to mention in Belgium specifically that you have something called pre-doctoral fellowships also, that after finishing a master's, you can apply for a pre-doc fellowship. And in Belgium, especially, you have the Research Foundation of Flanders, which is quite a competitive PhD fellowship, but it's a very good stipend that they give you, which is a fully funded PhD fellowship, where you can have a very good proposal, get it passed. It's going to be a 4-year PhD or a pre-doc fellowship if you get through it. So you can think about that. But now moving to the second session of the panel discussion that I wanted to talk about is, okay, now enter the masters with this renewed, we have done a lot of things, we enter the masters. Now, how do we navigate the masters? Masters course is intense. It's like a 9 to 10 month course. You have a lot of readings, you have a lot of methodology to work with, you have social commitments, you also have finances for people who are living abroad. How did each of you manage that? I mean, for living in India itself, for me, it was such a challenge. But I wanted to hear from all of you. Niharika, we can start with you. How did you manage your that that social that yourself during a master's, because it's a very intense period, and how did you get the most out of it, or if you could get the most out of it?
I mean, I definitely tried to get the most out of it. I don't know how successful I was, but some things to note was what did I want to do after reaching there. So I got in touch with a lot of people who did their masters from NUS, but who went into academia. And that itself was a struggle because I could see a lot of people doing their masters and then joining law firms, but doing a master's overseas and then joining academia, at least at that time, were very few. Now it's a now you still have a lot of people. You still have access to such people, so it's easier to ask. But then not a lot, and that's how I got in touch with a few people. They advised me what to do, what not to do. Very small. I mean, I think with overseas LLM, the major question is how do you fit within a budget? So things, I mean, really rudimentary tips like cooking for yourself, not having a lot of social outings, etc., are some tips which everyone tells you to do. But I think one thing which I was very happy about and choosing NUS was that there were a lot of funding opportunities from other organizations as well. So SMU Singapore, for example, has a center, Arcadia, which is known for its IP work. I was able to get some funding from there to get some part of my tuition fee and also go for a conference which was hosted in Hong Kong then. And that was a very good exposure because I felt that not only was I getting paid to attend a conference, but also to see what academics in this part of the world talk about. What do they want to discuss? What interests them? Similarly, EPIRA now is a very big Asian network, but back then it was only starting out. So I'm very proud of the fact that I got in touch with Professor Irene Kalburi then, and I worked with her towards the organization of I think what was the second EPIRA, which was hosted in Jakarta then. It was only starting out now, and it's very nice to see that it's such a big community now. So even then, for that, I was able to get some funding to go to Jakarta and present some of my findings during well, not findings, but what I'm interested in during a master's student. So my goal was more to get more and more funding as much as I could to go for conferences, to attend networking events, etc., etc. And I think being in Singapore, specifically being at NUS, helped a lot because a lot of these scholarship opportunities were open only to NUS students. So that was one factor. Living alone, of course, living away from home country, etc., there are a lot of social consequences of that. I think I've mentioned this earlier. Isolation is real. Trying to fit in into a community, you're expected to learn a new academic system, and you're expected to also excel in that academic system in just a time period of 8 to 9 months, which is daunting. Time goes by really fast. But it really depends on what you want to do out of that LLM. So I did everything. I tried doing everything. I attended, of course, attended classes, etc. That all is there, but also not leaving out the social part, being conscious of trying to interact with all sorts of people from all sorts of nationalities. That's where I mean, that's the reason why I have taken the choice of come out of my comfort zone. Otherwise, why would I? So I think that is something which everyone should keep in mind while going for an LLM, and it's not difficult. And what we often lose touch of is the smaller organization funding bodies which give you small time grants. That made my life relatively easier during my master's, and now during the PhD, I really rely on them. I mean, during my PhD, of course, now I'm on a full-time scholarship. I get a monthly stipend. My research expenses are paid. But for example, funding a field trip all the way to India, of course, the funds were there, but to make life easier, these small-time grants really helped. So, for example, if I was roaming around Bhuj, covering a area of 500 square kilometers, I easily rented a scooty and I went around villages for a month. That was easier because I could get those small time grants. So researching more on these small term grants, I think makes life much easier.
Thank you, Niharika. And Lokesh, would you like to share?
Yeah, just a few thoughts as to maybe I think what I think Niharika said. So there can be three kinds of constraints that you can face in LLM, and the three kind of choices that you also need to make. One is choosing courses, so which also requires funding because speaking of the US university, every credit is costly. So I think you have to pay some $2,000 for every course. So it's costly. So even if your LLM requires 12 for exam credits or 14 credits, if you want to take more courses, you have to pay more. So your learning vis-a-vis your your real cost comes there. Second can also be an example of connecting people. Now you can connect with three kinds of people here. One is of course alumni who can help you get a job or an internship. Job is a difficult one, go with internship one. And then professors maybe try to make it'll be not possible for LLM student to just talk to all the professors and just befriend them and make them their buddy. Difficult, but just make one or two targets, one or two of them, and help just see and tell them about what you like to work on, etc., etc. But still speak with everybody you can. The third is of course enjoying part, the culture part, which requires a lot of cost. So if they're in scholarship, it's fine, but still scholarship is also not huge, so they can't pay in millions. They pay very limited money. So that's a that's an unfortunate thing that we all know of, that the funding is limited. In my case, I was funded by Arcadia Fellowship, so I had some funding, which when I look back, I think it's very less, but I still managed. So you have to make these choices, and also depends upon the country you are living in. In France, I believe it is a bit difficult for me since I don't speak French, so I just go with bonjour and comment ça va. There's nothing more than that I can do. But if I live in the US, it was a bit easier for me. I lived within a very amazing Ethiopian family, so it was easy for me to manage things. But depending on where you are based, your cost can also differ, both cognitive cost and your like real life financial cost. So it depends upon the university, but I think LLM once you go there, I would say that maybe plan things before you go there. Of course, things will change because things will be completely different, like the way you imagine. But I would still say that still plan some things how you want to manage. And since you have only 10 months, and then you might have 1 year at max, like average 1 year for your post work visa. So try to approach people every day because after 10 emails, maybe one person will speak to you, say hi. So just yeah, pre-plan things a bit.
Thank you, Niharika and Lokesh. And there's a question that is specifically addressed to both of you. Like, what are your plans after the PhD? And do you intend to go back to India? Is the question. Do they plan to teach or teach abroad or come to India? That's the specific.
Niharika, want to go first or continue?
I wanted to say, do you want to go first?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a very optimistic question, to be honest. I'm third
Yeah.
year of my PhD and I'm really struggling. I have to finish my PhD first, and my mind go for the postdoc or something. But I really want to teach in a university. Or second option is to maybe do some policy work with some think tank. And I'm open to any opportunities, so I might want to come back. I might stay here. Not sure. As of now, the focus is to finish PhD. The killing task for me as of now. Yeah.
No, likewise. It's obviously a very subjective question, and there are so many ifs and buts which will happen in the next 1 year. I'm also in my final year of the PhD. So job applications will start soon. Not restricted to any certain jurisdiction. I think after one point of time, priorities change, and a lot of other factors also come in making a choice. Where do you want to be? So apply everywhere and then see where it works out is my motto right now. And in terms of industry, I am positively going back to teaching. I really enjoyed my time during Nalsar, and I think it was a good litmus test to also see whether I can do this for a lifetime, for which I'm very grateful to my previous employment opportunity. So definitely going back to teaching, where subject to the ifs and buts which will happen. And like Lokesh said, the struggle is real. Things are getting intense now in the final year. And the first goal is to wrap this up.
Thank you. Malobika, can I also ask you to share how do you manage your life while working and while also working on the PhD and a little bit about that, since we already heard from Niharika and Lokesh.
Um, If I say honestly, it's mad. It's completely mad. Because you try to figure out, you wake up in the morning and then you decide what to do and what not to do. Actually, that's the thing. Because you will have papers to write. You will not only have papers to write for your PhD, you will have papers to write for the subjects that you are teaching. Because God forbid, if you're teaching in a very good university, there are areas, because there will always be the strive to improve yourself, to better your understanding. I'm teaching labor law, I'm also teaching disability law, so I have a specific interest in those two fields too. So these have become like a like bane. So you need to write papers on those areas too. Since my PhD is an empirical research, I have to also focus on how to network with individuals, ask individuals for interview. There will be, I have to keep myself open that not everybody has the time. Not everybody is going to be open to give me interviews. So I have to be flexible. I have to learn. So how I have to learn the soft skills, how to reach out to individuals, how to talk to individuals, how to. So there will be some interviews where people will not allow you to record the conversations. So how to do that, how to deal with paper rejections, that you have to learn as a PhD student. And while teaching also, there will be teaching commitments. There will be 2, 3 classes that you will be teaching. There will be students, their needs. You have to, of course, take care of that. Because, and since I am teaching at a university where the students are really, really good, they're really sharp, they have a specific nuanced and curiosity, they want to know. So you also have to read up, keep yourself updated on the subjects also. It's challenging, but this is a practice when I started from my LLM. So when I started LLM and NUJS, this was a practice which I was exposed to. It started off, but you also have to keep in mind that, again, you have to finish the PhD somehow, and it has to be done. So it has to keep, you have to keep pace and finish it, but it cannot be a half-hearted job. uh, it really depends on your supervisor. Because of it, my supervisor has his eyes set, and he always, I mean, I basically plan it out in such a way that at least I try to meet him. I mean, it depends on his availability, once a month, and keep him updated about what work I do, because that is how I keep myself accountable as what I'm doing. Because if I don't do that, uh, I lose complete track of what, because I am at a job and I'm working and I'm doing my PhD. I'm doing empirical interviews too. Because there is always a risk to get lost in these things. So you can, if you're interviewing, you can keep on interviewing people. If you're doing literature review, you can keep on reviewing sources. So you have to keep a balance between all of this. And I think that is essential thing of doing the PhD. Yes.
Thank you so much, Malobika. And with that, I feel that we discussed a lot of the major themes that we had kept, we had in mind. I would now like to go to the audience questions that we got, and they are like, we have some very interesting questions. And I've actually collated them, and I'll ask all of you to give your responses if that's fine. So one of the questions that we received is on the structuring of the PhD proposal, and also connected to that is the SOP. So how did you navigate that, and do you have any tips? And so if anybody has any responses on that.
I can take this if
Yeah.
first on SOP. SOP is obviously a requirement for a lot of universities overseas. I don't believe it's a requirement for for studying in India. A statement of purpose is essentially, look at it like this. Universities don't have the time to interview every applicant. So what is your opportunity to make an impression on them? It's the SOP. reference letters, your mark sheets, etc. They're all beyond a certain threshold. If you have met it, then you are in. But the deciding criteria becomes, or at least one of the deciding criteria becomes your statement of purpose. And that is why that is a document which, in my opinion, you should invest the most time in. It's a document where you are telling them in a certain number of words, 500 words to 2000 words, depending on which university, that why you are a good candidate for this program, what will you bring to the university, what do you plan to do after this course, and how do you plan to use this degree in your career trajectory, and what have you done so far which makes you an eligible candidate to derive the most potential from this program. These ifs, how, but, why, these are the major questions. A good SOP is where you have smoothly made a flow between all of these questions, and you have also added your personal touch to it. So, for example, my statement of purpose actually started with an incident where I was asked to leave a law firm office. And so that's a hook. And of course, it's real, it happened. I did not name any law firm. Then I explain what happened, why happened, how is it connected to my interest, and so forth. It's essentially the first few paragraphs is where you have the time. The first few lines, in fact, is your time to catch hold of the admissions committee's attention because they are going through thousands and thousands of SOPs in a minute. What is it which you can bring to the table? So that's one. So it's, I think, a really crucial document for applications overseas. As far as a research proposal is concerned, yes, that becomes very important when you're applying for a PhD or if you're applying for a master's by research track. In a research proposal, you are expected, there are of course certain subheadings which you can look up on any Google search. Your introduction, your conclusion, what are your methods, what is your literature review, what is your research gap, what are your references, how do you plan to fill that research gap, what is your contribution to knowledge. All in all, you will realize that a lot of these research subheadings are different in nature in terms of what they say, but in terms of content, they're more or less asking you the same thing. First thing is that what is your topic about? What's the broad background behind your topic? And then how do you narrow it down? So you're telling them your literature review that I have read so and this is why I feel that there is a problem because so and so research does not connect with so and so research. And this is where your proposal will bring something new. So that's your contribution to knowledge. And then how do you do it is the method section. So it's a pretty straightforward, very straightforward requirement. But in both these documents, I think a lot of people really underestimate the power of feedback and time. A lot of times people will make these documents towards the end of the application and then expect that it's of good quality. Whereas your actual job has begun after you have made the first draft or after you have written the first draft. And the job is to reach out to the right people, request them to look at your documents, give them honest feedback, and then incorporate that feedback. How do you know that you're reaching out to the right people? Of course, LinkedIn is there, but in my opinion, a good set of people to get feedback from are the people who have done or who have gone through that process themselves in recent times. Because again, admissions, higher education is an industry and trends keep changing. What the admissions committee was looking for maybe 5 years ago has changed. How do you know it has changed? Only somebody who has done it recently will be able to tell you. So after everything, please make sure you keep time to get enough feedback from enough people and don't wait till the last minute. And don't shy away from reaching out to people for feedback. You will be surprised by people who will actually respond to you positively.
Lokesh, would you like to add?
Yeah,
anything?
maybe I can. Yeah, for the PhD thesis, sorry, PhD proposal, there isn't any format as such. But normally, as Niharika mentioned, I would focus on I normally focused on two major things, depending upon the university's proposals. For example, Oxford takes just 500 words proposal. I did not have time to, for example, do a long literature review. On the contrary, Cambridge has 2,500 words, so I could do more work on that. And Stronspo weirdly had 5,000 words proposal, including footnotes. So it was like a short paper. So I had different ways of organizing my thoughts, and there was a totally politics of writing. So how you write, how you write. So I mostly focus on two things. One, I look at the gap, like what I'm bringing new, what is already missing. You have to play some game about like showing about what is already done, what is already done. But how you do that, either you have a separate part called literature review, which I never done in many of my SOPs, but some people do that and it works and it helps. In my case, I normally, the way I write a normal any essay competition or in any article, I would write in a similar manner and I would try to show my gap in the second or third paragraph with a lot of footnotes. And I would use footnotes, not just simple footnotes like citing any person. I would use all signal based footnotes. I would say C, contra, CF and whatnot. And because in Blue Book, there are also different forms, different ways of citing people. So even for the single assertion, you can have different types of footnotes there. And then I would focus on my claim, what do I really want to argue. And I would trigger words when I say those things. So I would say, while it has been argued so much, nobody has done this, or very little work has been done on this. I would use trigger words like little has been done, or this gap, which I want to fill. Instead of leaving things vague for people to identify what is my gap, I would directly say, this is the gap that I want to work on. This is my argument. So I would say, this is my central argument, my main argument. So I would use these two things mainly, and then of course you can say how your research can help future people or future research, etc. Two major things. On SOP, I might refer bit from Niharika on this point because like I I wrote a strong SOP in my understanding, which also of course got successful based on my admission. But I've heard from people in school that they don't really look at your SOP at length because they have other questions to judge. For example, they have questions like that what did you not learn in your LLM that you want to learn here? So I was required to write 2,000 words SOP, but I don't know if they really read it or not. Like I didn't really feel it when they asked me because in Sciences Po also has an extra round of selection, which is an interview. So in some universities might take interviews, some don't. So depends on the university. So SOP, of course, you should always write. Yeah, you should always write a strong SOP. Nevertheless, whether you know it or not, whether you know the university will like it or not. But proposal is something which will definitely be yeah, emphasized. So just doing that. An SOP can have three parts in my understanding. I normally look at SOP in terms of time gap in linear way. I look at what I did, what I do, and what I will do. And I connect these three phases looking at how previous stage brings it to the next one. So what I did helps me do what I do. What I do will help me do what I will do. And what I will do will help me do my future. So based on these linear time metric, I normally look at my SOP because they also help somebody also reach. And I would say use trigger words in all these things, what you want to do, what you don't. So don't keep things vague, make it very clear because they have less time to read and they will have a lot of draft space.
Just to clarify, SOP for LLM and and proposal for PhD in terms of importance. So
Yeah.
when I was talking about SOPs being important, I was talking about LLM applications. But for PhDs, I agree. I did not spend a lot of time on my SOP. It was all about the proposal.
And Malobika, do you want to add to the discussion regarding the proposal that you had on your expert evidence?
Yes, sure. The fact regarding, should I talk about the proposal during LLM or for PhD? PhD, right?
Yeah.
Yes. For the PhD. For the PhD bit, it's very important because in NUJS requires, I think every university has their own rule. The NUJS requires you to give your own research idea or research statement as a part of your transcripts. Research statement will be required. You need to give in at least 2 or 3 pages of research statement. I worked on it with the help of my LLM supervisor. I had asked for his help on the areas I could work on. He asked me to go through specific literature which I read up on, and basically you have to give a preliminary idea. So basically what you have to look for is that you have a substantial idea of what you're working on, and basically foundation and theory should be clear. That is what Indian universities are actually looking for. And what happened in the interview was that a lot of theoretical questions were asked, along with the questions regarding, as Niharika pointed out, the aspects, the research proposals, regarding the research design, regarding the methodology. Because your LLM, you have to keep in mind a lot of emphasis is given on the methodology, the research methodology, how research is being taught to you. That will be asked. Your research methodology, how are you going to go about your research design? And specifically, in some universities, the RACs are in charge, the Research Advisory Committee. The senior most faculties or professors will be a part of this research advisory committees, and they will take the final call in taking in you as a PhD candidate or not. And and they will be mostly the part in your interviews, and there will be usually a panel, and they will have the niche subject area. But one thing that will be common among all of them will be research methodology, and they will be asking you on this. So one thing, you have to have a sound understanding about the research proposal that you are giving, but on the other hand, you also have to have a sound understanding about the research methodology that you are proposing. Because if they find a little bit of flaw in it, then it becomes a little difficult to get admission into a specific university. If it is a top university in India, it really matters, and it will really help before, even if you write the proposal, to reach out to specific faculties. Again, yes, LinkedIn is a good area to network, but specifically visiting a university, meeting a faculty, taking an appointment in your research area, having the email ID, writing out to them, having a call with them, or understanding or reading up their works. It's very important, reading out your specific area. See, for example, in my IP litigation or specific area, if somebody else is working in that area, if some professor is working in the university, read up on it, read up the literature. So if they are a part of your research interview, if they're going to ask you, if they are part of your interview, understand what question might come to you. So, and understand what questions they might ask you. There will be few professors who will grill you on the research methodology. You will, 100%. So that you have to be clear about.
Thank you,
Yes.
Malobika. Thank you so much. Considering that we are also running out of time, so now we have three questions left. Okay. There is a question relating to what are some interesting opportunities available in Nordic countries. There's a question on how did you solidify your interest in IP, and there's a specific question on how does one create or gain experience in non-doctrinal methods. For example, I'm working on a non-doctrinal method on trust. And I think Lokesh is also working on a non-doctrinal method. And Niharika, you also. I'm not aware about Malobika if you are doing doctrinal or not, but you're doing empirical.
Yes, yes,
Um,
I'm doing empirical.
so I think one of us, all three of you can choose one question to address this, and then we can close the panel if that's okay. So the first question is on Nordic countries. If anyone has any experience in of contacts in Nordic countries, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and what's the research culture there, and how does if there are any opportunities there.
Just a quick response I have on that. I
Mm.
heard that some universities and like in that part of the world doesn't really charge a lot for the masters. The University of Oslo, I know of, they have a very good culture for IP history. They have a huge funding. They also work on very, very amazing work on that. So if somebody is interested in IP history, they can definitely go for that. And they also decent relevant people that I know of. The only issue that you can come across in these countries is language. Some of them might not offer you LLM in English. PhD is in English, you can do that. But LLM might not be in English. But I would say University of Oslo and some countries, yeah, Copenhagen is one of them. Copenhagen is a very good PhD program for IP and tech sort of things, but not LLM program in English, I believe. But so yeah, make a list of those countries, send me email to them, their department of admission, and speak with them, tell them that you want to work, they want to study there, and if they can connect with somebody. Sometimes the department can help you connect with somebody, some Muslim student who's there. They also have their admission committee and this one more public committee, something the committee, which they can always interact with. So yeah,
Thank
not
you,
much on that.
Lokesh.
Yeah.
Thank you. And would someone like to answer the question relating to solidifying your interests? The specific question, I would just like to read it. What solidified your interest in academia? Is it teaching or the research that motivates you? And how does one narrow down interests?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Both, because I'll just answer it very shortly. Research will open up a lot of avenues, and specifically since I've been researching in areas which involves speaking to individuals, talking to people, and understanding what they have to say, trying to figure out your theoretical areas, your research area, from what they have to propose, what they have to talk about, listening to people, that has kind of made my interest in academia quite enriched. And on the other hand, teaching people, because there will be a huge number of people that you will be teaching. Each student has their different needs. You have to keep aside your research area separate and teach them and tell them what you need. Exactly how all of you have come together here for this thing that we are doing here for this event. You have your different needs, but you will be taking out some things that we are giving you here. So both in academia, research and teaching have contributed to an interest in academia. I don't feel like leaving academia soon, but yes, hoping so that and hoping so that I can contribute somehow through my research to this academia. Yes.
Thank you. And Niharika, that leaves the last question to you on, yeah, and actually quite perfect because you have a completely non-doctrinal approach to research. How did you navigate engaging in methods which are not purely doctrinal? And if I can also ask you the question on IELTS, did you give the IELTS examination and any tips on that? Thank you.
Too many thoughts right now. So I wanted to quickly add to the Nordic question. I have put a link in the chat box. It's a Danida fellowship, which is in tie-up with University of Copenhagen and DPIIT chair. I'm aware of people, they select a cohort of Indian people every year. I think it's a 10-15 cohort, and they go to Copenhagen for a 15-day research stay. I think it's great for somebody who's interested in patent law specifically. That's one. Secondly, what Malobika said, just to add to that, teaching also definitely helps. I think there were times when I was teaching something and I had a eureka moment that, oh my God, this could be a really good research topic. And while teaching, I quickly took down that, okay, this is a thought which I need to return to after the class is over. One thing which I do want to take a moment to acknowledge and put out there is that we are too busy chasing something which is perfectly aligning with our interests. That will never happen. It's like occupational hazards. It's like choosing which industry you want to go to. Every industry, law firm, litigation, academia has their own occupational hazards. It's on you to see which occupational hazard you're willing to put up with, and whether the pros of that certain industry is more than the occupational hazard. It's the same with research interests. It's not like I'm interested in IP law 100%. There are aspects in IP law which bore me, but I'm willing to still put up with it because I'm interested in the major portion of it. It's the same for anyone who's starting out to, or who's in a very initial phase of what research interests they want to narrow down to. This is also something which I want to point out. There will be ample opportunities for you to switch or to integrate more aspects of research into this. So it's not like if you have chosen a research interest now, you're obligated to stick to it for the next 10 years. That is not the case. I think a lot of students feel that what I have made a choice now is something which I have to stick to. And I will now connect that to the question which was put on me. Research methods too was something which I think with time the more I know, the more I'm realizing, okay, I'm interested in this part. So I'm cherry picking. This is something which interests me more. Okay, how can I try to find a way to combine it with my current research interests? So research methods was the same thing. I thought that probably this is the time in my life where I am fully dedicated to research. I have nothing else to do in my day. So why not learn more new skills? if I go back, when I go back to a teaching job, it will be difficult. I mean, hats off to Malobika that she's able to do it, but I don't think I would be able to, or at least I would have struggled more. So this is a good time to learn a new skill. So what do I do? Methods. I mean, we're obviously in IP law, there is so much of doctrinal stuff, but in the last few years, a call for non-doctrinal methods has also made a big impact. So this is a way in which I can maybe integrate more things. I like speaking to people. So how can I integrate that in methods? Interviews. Okay, let's try interviews. Where can I get formal training of interviews? Your university will have resources. There are ample number of resources outside too, and I'm happy to have a longer chat with anyone who's interested about this. There are courses, there are free available courses. There are plenty of books to read on research methods, on qualitative methods. And Malobika was right in a sense that when you're applying for a PhD, methods is something which you will be grilled upon. But I also acknowledge and appreciate that when you are starting out, you know nothing about methods. I mean, did we know anything about methods? No. It's with time that okay, now we're in a position to maybe make a comment on something. But it wasn't like that when we were starting out with the PhD, and that is the joke about that's the running joke about a PhD. You have to pretend to know that you have sorted it all out, but in your head you don't know what you're doing, and that's completely normal. That's how we're all even probably are right now. So it's fine if you know just enough of what you have written in your proposal, reading enough books. There are enough ways to incorporate more methods. There are surveys, there are interviews, there are quantitative methods, there are coding. So I'm coding right now, and it's something which I'm learning with time too. There is only so much which I can get in my research training. The real training will only begin when I start doing it myself. So the best you can do is prepare yourself as much as possible by the free materials and courses which are out there. And the real learning will only happen when you start doing it yourself. So then my suggestion is to start immediately. Don't wait too long. I was given this good advice. Don't wait. And I want to mention this. Devanshi mentioned it to me that don't wait too long to go for interviews. Don't feel that you need to over prepare yourself because you will never be. There will be a lot of learning in the field which will happen. And that was good advice. So yeah, try to prepare yourself, but there will never be a stage where you will be 100% prepared. Leave something for the future. That will happen.
Thank you so much, Niharika. And then there's a last question relating
I
to yeah, Lokesh. Yeah, sorry.
no, I just mentioned something, the same thing, that how we can really get to know about different aspects, like non-law things. So I said that we can check like some specific method, for example, TWIL, race IP, which particularly focus on law plus some other thing. And then if you like other thing outside law, then you can of course explore. For example, I begin with example TWIL theory, and then I went into Foucault and other people. So you can look at specific thing and then you can move on. Because caste studies can one of the studies which can help you look at different parts, sociology, how it has worked in law and so.
To add to that, I have shared another link. Scribr is a great resource for somebody who's just starting out on PhD applications. It has various tabs on how to write your research approaches, your designs, your hypothesis, sampling, collecting data. There's a lot of really good, useful information there. I highly recommend it to somebody who is trying to figure out how to do it.
One thing I just wanted to add
Okay,
here,
fine.
anybody
Thank
who
you.
is just pursuing their LLM, just be careful. Anybody who is pursuing their LLM, just be careful. Research methodology might be a subject you might feel like you might overlook. कर देंगे, you feel like कि हो जाएगा something, but that is one of the most important subjects that you can ever study in your LLM, because that is something that is going to, at least if you're going to pursue your PhD from India, if you're doing your LLM from India, research methodology is one of the most important topics that you can study, build up your foundation, and it will prepare you for your PhD, at least for the entrance. As Niharika said, this will give you the foundation of your knowledge and will make, at least if not, then at least make you appear that you are capable of independent research.
Just
Thank
one
you.
final thing to add. Wait, it's leaving. I
As
forgot.
academics, we always have one final thing to add.
I
And
forgot it.
I just have one final question, then Lokesh, I can come to you and then close the session. So the question has been asked by Junak, and he's asking about, okay, we always talk about, okay, the first line needs to be powerful. The first line needs to be powerful. How do you really do that? And I think from what should be my hook or strong opening in my SOP? For me, I think I am not a person who is very personal, so I used something that inspired me while I came across literature. So the SOP that I drafted for my PhD was from um, this Nobel Prize winner on institutional economics. So I used that as thing, which was useful for me. For other people, it might be something else. So if anyone has any contributions on that question.
Some people also cite data. I think I cited data in one of my SOPs. Like, okay, people study for poverty, etc. I come from one of those data sets, something of this sort. So, but some people also use, quotes, but it's too cliche now. Like I think like a lot of people use like people have used quotes now, but depending on where you're applying again, this is the main thing. Just make it accordingly. Because some example, this is like Harvard, where you might have SOP and your short statement, you might want to reflect the connection between both of them. That's what you are as an individual. You also want to work on something which is closer to that. So, and the point which I forgot, I just got to know that funding, sorry, your methodology can also be one of the ways of getting funding. Some places want specific methods to work upon. For example, in Sean's point, you work on fancy theory, like interesting theories like Foucault and other people, you can get better grades. Like, and yeah, this is one thing that you can think of mind that the methodology can help you get funding, can help you find who gets to, who gets to work with you or who gets to take you.
A common way to include is that you want to do a comparative study between India and UK. Apparently, that helps a lot in PhD funding. I've shared another YouTuber's channel. I think he's a great academic YouTuber, great free YouTube videos.
Wow, I had no idea about this also. So thank you, Niharika. I'm also
You've asked for it, so here.
sorry. Uh, so thank you so much everyone for this amazing chat today. And I wanted to thank SpicyIP also. Is Swaraj here? I wanted to quickly call on Swaraj also and Sonisha, who really helped us today with setting up the link and the LinkedIn. I think there's a one before we just end the session. If you have any other questions or themes that we did not cover today, we could not cover today, and you have any suggestions, please email us to at academy@spicyip.com. I'm just going to mention it here. And really wanted to thank Malobika, Niharika, and Lokesh for coming on this call today. And
Thank
I
you.
hope
This
you
was
all
great.
have.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Danish.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everyone. See you.